an introduction, or are you just going to jump into question?
This meeting is being recorded.
Yeah, I'll definitely have you do an introduction. So, are you guys okay with like a 30, 60-second little blurb about yourself? Basically your name, your agency name, where you're located, and maybe what you offer, like permanent placement, backup care. Does that sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have to be anything fancy. All right, let me get all these folks in here. Hello, welcome. It is so good to see all of your beautiful faces. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. I know that you are all incredibly busy, but I have been so excited about this special series because these women are so amazing. All right, we're going to give them a couple more minutes because we have a lot of folks that are supposed to be joining us. Let's see. I see some familiar faces. Hi, Miss Emily. Good to see you. And Miss Ashley. Miss Jackie, you're back. It even says your name this time. Were you so proud of me for being like a mother's prayer? Jackie.
Yes.
On the entire webinar. I was using all of my mommy brain. But luckily, I saw your face, so that definitely helped. Hey, Miss Tony. You working from home today? Gotta love a good work from home day. Jade, it's good to see you. Hi, Allison. Hey, Bria. All right. So we are recording as we have quite a few friends who are unable to join us, but we're very interested in learning more. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the speakers kind of do a quick little overview of themselves and where they're located, their agency name. And then I'm going to ask some questions to get started. But for those of you that are attending, we love to have things be interactive. So start putting questions in the chat box. If you want to come live and ask your question live, even better. And then our incredible panel will take turns answering it. Are you guys excited to hear about all these incredible women and their different journeys? We're so thankful that you guys are all here. All right, so let's get started with Miss Bailey. Bailey, if you will tell everyone who doesn't already know how fabulous you are, your story and a little bit more about your happy nest.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, Megan. I'm excited to be here. My name is Bailey Silverman. I'm the owner of Your Happy Nest Nanny and Babysitting Agency. We just celebrated 10 years of business this past summer. I started my agency in Atlanta, Georgia, and we still have, I have an awesome team that helps me manage that location. I am in Charleston, South Carolina, so we service this area. We were in Cincinnati for about 7 years and just decided to no longer work in Cincinnati. And we just opened up in Charlotte at the beginning of this year. So we closed one branch, trying a new area. But we do long-term placements, short-term placements, babysitting. We don't do any type of corporate backup care, but we do babysitting services and newborn care specialists, household managers. So, yeah.
Wow, you do a lot in a lot of different places. Good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure some people will have lots of questions for you and your decision to branch out, because that's something that people ask me all the time. So thank you for being here, Bailey. All right, we're going to go to Miss Meshonda Womble. You will tell us a little bit about your organization.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Meshonda. I'm based in Texas, primarily in the Woodlands area, which is north of Houston. We provide long-term placements, short-term placements, babysitting as well. But in addition to that, we have another side to our operations where we do backup care. And we are currently doing that, of course, in Houston, but Austin, Dallas, and New Orleans.
Wow.
And we will celebrate 8 years in 10 days. So we're super excited about that.
That is so exciting. All you people in all these multiple locations. My goodness, this is so impressive. Okay, so let's go to Carson Wagner. You will tell us about Lifetime of Love.
Hi, I'm Carson. I own Lifetime of Love Nannies. I started Lifetime of Love Nannies back in 2019, so we're about 3 years and some change old. I employ all of our nannies directly, so we provide long-term care, short-term care, full-time, part-time, backup care, you name it. We also specialize in special needs care, so we're accepting to all kiddos of all capabilities. So no matter if the child has a feeding tube or the child has autism, Down syndrome, you name it, we have a nanny for them. Oh, and we're located in Reno, Tahoe, and surrounding areas in Nevada.
Awesome. Thank you, Carson. And Miss Denise.
Hi, everyone. Megan, thank you for including me today. My name is Denise Hanson. I am the founder and owner of Trusted Nanny Match, and we are in the San Francisco Bay Area. We are in our 4th year of business, and we place primarily long-term nannies, family assistants, household managers, some night nannies, and a little bit of babysitting. We'll do some housekeepers too, actually. We do some very occasional temp care, but no backup care, just primarily permanent placements.
Wonderful. Thank you, Denise. Okay, so my first question you kind of already answered, right? That was Denise has been doing it for 4 years. Carson, you're 3. Meshonda, you're 8. Bailey, you're 10. We've got, I heard backup care, full-time, part-time, housekeepers, NCS. We kind of have the gamut of experiences with placing, tons of really great experience. So friends, if you'll start asking questions in the chat box, I'm going to start and ask, I really want to know, what did you do before you started your agency, right? Like, how did you get into the agency world? So Denise, you're kind of still up on my screen. Do you mind starting with that question?
Sure. So prior to opening the agency, I worked in education. So I was in the administration field of education. Part of that role included a lot of hiring, a lot of recruiting. I then became a mom myself and stepped back from work for a period of time, and then realized that I wanted to start my own business. We had a hard time finding a great nanny for ourselves, and I just identified a little bit of a opportunity, especially where kind of part of the Bay Area where I'm located, that there was a need. So with the guidance and encouragement from the nanny we ended up finding and our family, I did a lot of research in the Bay Area and just in our target market to see where we could kind of fill some of those gaps, and ended up attending the INA conference in 2019 and met a lot of you, met Megan there as well. And that was kind of how we all got started.
I can't believe that was 4 years ago. That's crazy to me. 4 years. Wow. What a story. Okay. What about you, Miss Bailey? What did you do before you started your agency?
So I was living abroad and teaching, and I was living in Taiwan with my fiance, now husband. And we came back, and I kind of was not sure what I wanted to do with my life. I was in my 20s. And so I had nannied before. So I got a nanny job part-time and interviewed through an agency. I ended up working for that agency for a few years, and just really fell in love with the industry and the type of work. The owner was very hands-off on her business. I'll just leave it at that. I never met her in person, barely spoke to her on the phone. I was kind of just left to my own devices to kind of figure things out working for that agency. And when I say working for them, I meant I was actively doing placements, not just working as a nanny for the agency. So I learned some from her, but felt like I would like to do this on my own, and I feel like I could do a better job. So I did. I went off on my own, and yeah, the rest is history. That was in Atlanta, and I worked as a nanny part-time as I was starting my business. And then gradually grown into a full-time job.
Wow. Okay, cool. So you worked with an agency before and you thought I could do it better, and you did. Well, I don't know the agency, so I can't say that for sure, but I'm going to go with yes, you did.
I won't say any names.
Okay, good idea. What about you, Meshonda? What did you do before you started Nannies of the Woodlands?
Beforehand, I worked in academic and clinical research on a management side, and it kept me really busy and away from my children. And so we were praying for an opportunity that gave me more flexibility and what have you. And so my husband was listening to a podcast and heard about an agency in New York. And we think that agency was run by a high schooler or a middle schooler, someone extremely young. And so when we explored the opportunities in this area, there wasn't an agency at the time, and we thought it would be a great business idea for us and kind of get me at home. And so that's why we did it.
Nannies by Noah. Is that what you're talking
Yes.
about? That's
That's
her.
her. That's her. And so the thought was, if a high schooler could do this, I think I could do it as well. And so just a natural connector, like connecting people with needs. And so we thought this would be a good path to take.
Very interesting. I love that. And then Carson, you were a nanny prior, right? So we do have a previous nanny. Okay, good.
Yeah, I was a nanny prior. I was in college, going to school for behavioral therapy, and then also providing behavioral therapy in kiddos with autism's homes for in-home care. And I realized throughout me providing therapy through the state, the parents have to stay home the whole time. So these parents just were not really getting the break that they needed and deserved. And so then I started nannying for special needs kiddos, and I loved it. And unfortunately, that agency had shut down. I guess I should say fortunately, because that's why I had ended up starting my agency, because I really wanted to find something in the Reno Tahoe area that could provide special needs care and, have different care providers that have those experiences and backgrounds and kind of create a community for them. And so we've been able to get respite, Palco, all of these different funds to where special needs families are able to access us at a very much lower expense out of pocket, which is amazing. So that is kind of the background on why I started and where I was beforehand. But yes, I did nanny, Megan.
Okay, good. Because I felt a little intimidated there with Bailey having her experience in Taiwan or Thailand, and then academia, you ladies came to the table with some incredible experiences. So good to know that you can have these incredible professional corporate experiences. You can have the experience of just being a nanny, and you can still be successful in this role. And then as far as your areas, it sounded like, Meshonda, you lived in the Woodlands, saw there was a need. We know Deniz lived in the Bay Area, felt the need. Carson lived in Reno, saw the need. And then Bailey, yep, you were living in Atlanta when you worked for the nanny agency and saw the need. So that makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to ask one more question, and then we'll start answering some questions in the chat box because they are adding up. Last question I'm going to ask is, what is the very first step you took to get started? Meshonda, do you want to start with that one? When you decided, when Nannies by Noah inspired you, and I saw in the chat box, they inspired some others as well. When Nannies by Noah inspired you, what was the very first thing that you did to get started?
I did some research on what was needed to start a business in the state of Texas. So I was on the Secretary of State's website quite often trying to figure out what those steps were, but then also what the requirements were to work with children in the state.
Wonderful. Good. So you started with research. It's always a good place to start. What about you, Bailey? Well, you had the experience, Bailey, so you kind of knew what to do, right? What about you, Deniz? What did you do? What's the very first step you took to get started?
Like Meshonda, I did a lot of research, a lot of online research, reached out to even other agencies, tried to connect with other owners. Like I said, I attended the INA. So that was kind of all of that was within like the first 6 months, 8 months.
Okay, awesome. Carson, what about you? What's the first step you took?
I sat down and I created a plan of what I want my brand to be, what I want to help others with, and kind of like a 5-year 5-year plan and then went from there. WikiHow was another way. I had looked up how to start a nanny agency, and surprise me, they have quite a bit of it right.
WikiHow, huh? Who knew? That's too funny. That is too funny. Okay, Bailey, why don't you answer the question as well? Because I don't want to speak for you. What's the first step to get started?
I would say, you know, I did all of the research because even though I had worked for an agency, I, you know, did not own my agency. So I did research as far as like business license and, you know, all of the local laws. I would say I also did a lot of events, just trying to get my name out in the community. So we did like any type of event that we could. Basically, we did like farmers markets and mom events and all of that. So I really did a lot of that early on, just to kind of start talking to people and start getting my name out there.
You know, I love that, shaking hands, kissing babies. That is a really
Mhm.
great way to do it. All right, my speakers, if you're comfortable, let's take some of these questions in the chat box, and then hopefully some more will come in. Of course, I always have questions. So I believe that was Miss Emily. Emily Gailey, did you want to ask your question directly or have me read it?
Happy to read it. If there was no interruption to each of you or backlash, publicly or just internally feeling conflicted, there was no backlash to your business today, what is one service or one process or one decision that you would go back and change since initiating your business?
Good question. Good question. Anybody on the panel can take that one. I think you got them thinking.
I'll take this one. One thing that I would have changed when I first started within the first 2 years is not getting help and not realizing that I couldn't do it all on my own, because I would, you know, go through, as we know, go through the waves of it gets really busy and then it slows down a little bit. And so I think, okay, super busy, I'm gonna rip my hair out. Okay, now it's okay. And then it'd go back to that tenfold. So just getting the help and realizing that I have to give up some of the reins on the business, and just, you know, my job as a business owner is to delegate and to ensure that my team knows how to run the business the way that I would. So that's something that I would definitely go back on and change, is getting help sooner and finding the right office staff, because now that I have it, I really don't know how I survived the first 2 years.
I think it was sitting in a room yelling and screaming back and forth, if I remember.
Megan came to Reno, and I had one of my previous employees sitting in the room, and we're like, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do this? And systems are definitely a big thing too. And Megan's a huge help with that, thank goodness. But yeah, that's definitely what I would go back and change, is getting help beforehand, because I didn't realize how much I needed it until I received it.
Love that answer. Meshonda, Bailey, Deniz, do any of you want to answer as well?
I'll jump in and just say one thing that I would probably change is the comfort level of asking for payments and charging my worth early on. That took me a little while to learn and get comfortable with it, but it is so easy now to just request, you know, what's due. And so if I could go back, I would definitely change that.
Love it. All right, Miss Rachel Atkins, would you like to ask your question? We'd love to see your beautiful face.
Here. Sorry, guys. Can you hear me?
Oh my gosh, that wallpaper. Are you kidding me right now? That's gorgeous.
Thank you. You know,
Okay.
I love a moment.
Please ask your question, Miss Rachel.
Okay. Well, I have questions for all of y'all. But how did you know it was time to grow to a new location? Bailey, for you, and anyone else who has multiple locations.
Sure, I can answer that. So our expansion, I guess, happened pretty organically. So I was starting in Atlanta, and then about 3 years into owning my business and living in Atlanta, I decided to move home to Charleston. So I had already had a couple of great team members in Atlanta that I felt, comfortable not completely giving over the reins to them, but they could manage without me. And so I opened here in Charleston, and the same thing happened with our Cincinnati location, where we had someone who was working for us in Atlanta. And we felt that the Cincinnati market was a great area to expand to. So I think it was, for me, it wasn't like, okay, I'm ready to grow. What city do we want to go to next? Besides just opening in Charlotte, that was a little bit of a different process. For me, it just kind of was about like the timing, having the right person at the right time in the right location. Also back then, it was really important to have someone in the city that we were working in. Now we do things a lot more remotely. So, that it is helpful for sure to have someone local that can get involved in the community and do events and things like that. But I would say, on the day-to-day basis, it's not as big of a deal as it used to be when we were interviewing nannies in person and going into families' homes and doing family consultations. Now everything's on Zoom, so it's not as necessary, I would say. But yeah, our process has been a little bit different. So, I would say for Charlotte, we just launched there at the beginning of this year. I do have one of my team members does actually live in Charlotte. So we just felt it was a good market. I think we just did a lot of research on the agencies that are currently there, the size of the cities, income levels, areas we wanted to focus marketing to. We just really did a lot of research on the front end. And, I guess I felt like at this point it was a good time to expand just because our current locations are doing well. It's like a well-oiled machine where I felt comfortable with things and felt like I personally also had the capacity to help launch in a new area.
Awesome. Thank you. Chantel, did you want to ask your question, my friend? Bailey, you just
Yes, I'll pop on. Hello.
Hi, Chantel. Good to see you. Welcome back.
Good to see you too. Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be back. Yes. So my question is, because I was saying my word is delegate for 2023. So it's kind of the question 2 questions ago. And you were saying how you chose to hire and bring people on the team. So I guess who are the first few people that you would suggest bringing onto your team, and how did you go about doing that?
I'm assuming this question's for me.
It's for anyone who wants to answer it, but she was referencing that you mentioned you would delegate sooner. Yeah, go ahead, Carson.
Okay, so I didn't know the exact position that I wanted to hire for at first. So I just said, hey, here's everything I do on a daily basis. To the person I had hired, what do you want to take? And so we kind of just created a position that way, and we called it a placement coordinator. So they would just help with a little bit of the hiring, a little bit of everything. And then once we grew more, I have now hired a full-time recruitment specialist that's in our office. We have a communications manager, and then we also have a scheduling coordinator. But I would say definitely just hiring someone to take the things that you do not like doing, or you don't feel like you have the time to do it. That's kind of how I started and sat down and said, these are the things I love doing. These are the things I want to, delegate off to someone else. And then, that's the way systems are formed.
That's exactly right. Bailey, you have staff, you all have staff, I do believe, right? I believe you all have staff. So would love to hear kind of your thoughts on when did you decide? And we actually had another question from Dara about hiring an employee. She said, how much capital do you think you need to hire an employee? So would love to also hear from Bailey, Deniz, and Meshonda on when you did get that help, what made you decide to do it? How much capital did you need? Just any of your tips and tricks around becoming more than a one-woman show.
I'm happy to jump in here. So my growth happened probably sooner than I was ready, but it was time. I was pregnant with my third and was rapidly approaching the due date and wanted to keep the business running without shutting down basically for my maternity leave. So I actually had 2 hires. I hired a VA and I hired the wonderful Jade, who is also on right now. And we are really lucky we share Jade with Nashville Nannies and Rachel. So she supports us really on everything on the nanny side, everything nanny communication, anything nanny related, candidate related. And then our VA does everything admin kind of back end related. So the back end stuff, the VA, that was all both positions were really easy, I think, to pass off. I was ready for that. I think kind of like Carson said, it's evaluating kind of where I knew my strengths were and where I knew I wasn't maybe the best at and where I thought someone could do that job better, as well as, what were some of the things that maybe don't give me as much joy. And I could possibly pass those duties on to someone who would find more joy in those duties.
Awesome. Bailey, Meshonda, any thoughts around that?
I'll just share that in the beginning, I was doing everything on my own. I was going crazy. I had a coach early on with the Small Business Development Center, and he said, you need to get help. And I said, I can't afford to get help. And he said, you cannot afford not to get help. And so just taking a leap of faith, I decided to hire one person who actually started nannying for me and then also was an admin. And from there, we just kind of grew as the need of the agency developed. And so I do think if you're at a point where you can't do everything, because we all can't do everything ourselves, it's okay to get help. And of course, having a budget would be great to do it. But sometimes those things work out, makes you work a little bit harder to get the income to come in.
All right, let's move on to Caitlin, who wants me to read because she has a brand new, beautiful baby who she's feeding. So Caitlin wants to know, what were some of the best ways that you marketed yourself? What do you all recommend? We get this question a lot. I'm sure you do as well. Bailey, you mentioned something when you first opened in Atlanta. If you want to bring that up again for those that might have missed that, the shaking hands, kissing baby concept, but would love to hear from anyone who's comfortable taking this question. What are the best ways that you have found to market the agency?
I know for us, we used a lot of the nannies that we placed. A lot of them had their own networks. And so on the caregiver side, we did a lot of networking through those that we had placed in the past. And then of course, social media worked a lot for us.
Yeah, I'll jump in on this one too. Marketing, I was a marketing major in college, so this is kind of my jam. And I've stepped back from kind of the day-to-day of working on placements, and I mostly do our marketing and social media and all of that. But yeah, I think marketing is like an all-encompassing, like there's not just one avenue to take to do marketing. I mean, you have to get out in the community and talk to people, like I mentioned before, getting in people's inboxes with emails. I mean, it's always a fine line. You don't want to annoy people and be all over the place, but I used to consult with someone who taught me a lot about social media. And I said, I feel like I'm like posting the same thing. Like we have an event, I don't want to post about the event, every other day. I'm going to annoy people. And she was like, think about, put yourself in their perspective. Like people are scrolling on their phones. They don't necessarily see everything, they might see your ad, but, people have to see things multiple times. And, that's what you'll hear a lot with anything with marketing. So I think it's about getting in person in front of people, getting in their email, getting word of mouth referrals are super important. Social media, I mean, as much as, I think people have a love-hate relationship with social media, but it is super important to stay active in that and stay on the trends and what people, what is getting a good response. So I think just doing all of it, unfortunately, is what you need to do.
Wonderful. It's an ongoing thing, right? From the beginning through 10 years later, you're still doing it. All right,
Oh, yeah.
Tony had a question. Tony, do you want to ask your question, honey, or have me read it?
Surely. So for anyone, what was the turning point? Unfortunately, imposter syndrome is very real and maybe it doesn't ever fully go away, but at what point did you feel like it was a turning point for you and that you've made it and felt like you could continually do this successfully?
Nobody's getting excited and jumping in.
I'll talk, but I feel like I just talked, but
You're
I
okay,
can
Bailey.
jump in. I would say in 2020, you know, it was a really hard year, obviously, for all of us going through COVID, and it was a crazy year business-wise. We were busier than we had ever been, but dealing with a lot of like stressed out parents. So I finally was at the point I felt financially where I could kind of step back from the day-to-day of running the business. And I think for my own kind of mental health, I needed to do that because I was like, had children at home that I was trying to juggle all the, you know, virtual school and all those things and dealing with a lot of stressed out parents. So, but I feel like now that I can kind of work on my business versus in my business, that was the point where I felt like, okay, I finally gotten to a place where I can really like enjoy this again and really do what I love to do at the parts of my business that I love to do.
Wonderful. Carson, I'm going to go to you with this because I also feel like it's a double-sided question, right? At what point did you feel like I got this? And then on those days where you're like, my hair is on fire, I don't got this. What do you do to keep going?
Yeah, definitely. I think a big turning point from me was honestly when I had first started, because I had come from a background of nannying and working for corporate America as well. And, you know, those are typical 9 to 5s. And if I have a doctor's appointment, I have anything going on, I can't go unless I ask for time off. And I remember the first doctor's appointment I had was in the middle of the day at like 1 p.m. And I was like, wait, I don't have to ask anyone, you know? So I think that was a really big turning point for me, is just having the freedom to do what I want with my time, and then realizing what I really want to do with my time is this. So that was a big turning point for me. And then also being able to be financially stable to where this could be my full-time, you know, career and thing that I was really passionate about, because I realized I wasn't rolling out of bed really upset about getting up like I used to, and I was actually excited to do it. And then there are those days, like Megan said, and she gets the calls all the time from me, of I want to rip my hair out. I can't do this anymore. And that happens, you know, here and there when, you know, maybe it's a disgruntled client, or a nanny made a mistake, or whatever the case may be. And I think what just really helps me is like remembering, you know, why I'm doing this in the first place. And for every, you know, one person that may be upset with whatever the case may be, that they're upset with, there are 10 others that are really happy, you know. And I also have an email folder that I look at sometimes that says positives, and it's all of the positive things we've gotten from nannies, from families. So when something negative may happen, I just open that up to contradict my mindset of, hey, you know, it's not over, it's just a bad moment.
That's such a good idea.
Going back to the expansion, a lot of people are interested in this. Dara, did you want to ask your question about expanding?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Gosh, let's see. So with everybody who's expanded, I mean, I live in Southern California, so I'm in San Diego. And I started as a nanny agency in 2004. So we've been in business a little under 19 years. And so, you know, we've gone up the coast, right? But I haven't gone across the country. So with that being said, you know, I'm physically here, right? And even when I lived in Europe from 2017 to 2019, nobody knew I was in Europe. I was just starting my day at 5 p.m. instead of 7 a.m. So do you think that you need to physically be in the arena or area or have somebody on your team in that physical space? Or do you think that you can do this virtually and not have to physically be in that environment?
That's a really good question.
I can just quickly jump in. I mean, we're just in California too, in the Bay Area, but I do find, and I'm sure, you know, if you have a team too, it is important that we at least keep the same business hours, that we have most of our team working, 9 to 5 standard. But with that said, if we do add another employee, we've thought about having someone, whether it's a VA or someone else, be available in the evening time to be able to field some of those requests and questions that come in, so that I'm not having to field all of those. I don't know if that helps, but.
Bailey, what about you? You have multiple locations. Is someone always physically present in all those locations?
So yes, that's how we have always operated, is having someone local. I don't think necessarily you have to. I do think as far as like building a nanny community, it is helpful to have someone local, even more so. I mean, on the client side as well, for doing, like I mentioned before, like local events and things like that. But I think building a nanny community and doing things like, International Nanny Training Day and other just like nanny socials, those are things that our agency tries to do a lot of, nanny play dates, and that it's a really great way that we meet new nannies, and just kind of like build a sense of community in our area. So I do think having someone local is important, but I don't think it's 100% necessary. Like I was saying before, now everyone is on Zoom. So as far as like the day-to-day running the business, you don't need someone there. So if someone is open to maybe going there and doing events occasionally, I think, you could definitely make it work. But I do see other agencies doing placements nationwide and seem to be very successful doing that. So, it's definitely doable.
Awesome. Rhiannon, did you want to ask your question, dear?
Sure. Hi, I'm Rhiannon. So my question takes you back to the very beginning. I haven't even launched yet, and I'm going to be focusing on corporate care. And my question is, how do you build that confidence in the very beginning, like to get your first, second, third placement, to offer this wonderful solution to someone, but I've never done it before, or trust me. So how do you gain that confidence?
I can jump in here. I was pretty nervous when I started myself. And hi, Rhiannon, good to see you in person or on video. I think it takes a lot of practice. So I would basically like role play with my husband. I would do some role play with Megan. I think just getting comfortable with your script, if you will, or even just your loose script. And the more and more you do it, right, the more and more comfortable you'll get. I think asking, and if you're doing corporate care, maybe just talking to different friends or different people in the industry and running kind of your process or your script by them and letting them give you feedback. But it's really a lot of practice, I think, builds that confidence.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to grab that one? I was going
to say, I agree. Practicing, and I just want to say that it will come. Like sometimes it takes talking to a lot of families just to get to sign on that first client, and you will be like so proud of yourself that you did. But they will come, especially if you are working with somebody like Megan, who can really like lead you in the right direction and give you all the resources that you need. Like it'll happen.
She's going to do great. All right, Colleen asked me to read a question, and then Emily, I'm going to let you speak again because you've got some really great ones lined up here. So Colleen says, how do you get a client to commit or sign on? I have gotten a few calls, aka prospective clients, but none of them actually signs after the discovery consultation. Is there something I should be doing differently? So I felt like that kind of had in line with what you guys were just talking about. I don't love the term fake it till you make it. I think we all are hot messes. Some of us just handle it better than others. But ladies, do you have any advice for that beginning when you're getting some interest, but they're not signing on the dotted line?
That's a tough one. I would love to have, some feedback on maybe what's going on with those calls. I know for me, I like to have a really in-depth conversation with the family and have a better understanding of what they're looking for, so we can determine next steps. We like to follow up with them, a week later. Hey, just wanted to check in. Do you have any additional questions about our services? Is there anything that's not clear? I think that follow-up is very helpful with making a commitment, but I think mostly it's just going to take time, just continuing to do what you're doing, and eventually it just happens. And then when it starts, it's almost like a snowball as well.
That's right. I use that analogy all the time, Meshonda, of a hill, right? In the beginning, you're pushing that snowball. But once you get to the top of the hill, it starts to roll on its own and gain momentum and traction. And so you could be speaking to people who actually aren't your target market.
Right.
I named when I was 17 years old, preferred childcare, and people call all the time and say, do you have space in the infant room? Because it sounds like a daycare. So clearly you're not always going to reach people that understand what you do. Emily, I adore you. Emily added some thoughts for you, Colleen. I don't know if you see that in the chat box. Is everything transparent on your website? Prices, process, and the expected outcome? If not, you may need to find more ways to pre-qualify them before the discovery call, so you're not wasting time. That's a really good thought, Emily. Who is your business coach? Wow. All right. Emily, do you want to ask a couple of these fantastic questions?
Sure, happy to. Thanks everyone for your time today. Lots of really great insight. It means a great deal. Also, I, like Rhiannon, have not launched yet, so this is all so good. My big question at the beginning is, what shiny objects, what are those things that drew you in or you thought would pay off in the end, that you ultimately kind of got burned by, or you wish you wouldn't have been so lured in by at the beginning of starting your agency?
I'm not sure I've had anything like that, Emily. I really love the systems that I have and have been super excited about them, and they've kind of transitioned over time. But I think that's a really good question. But unfortunately, I have not been in that boat where I bought something or signed up for something that wasn't a fit for us.
I have a lot of clients say print advertising, right? In fact,
I was just going to add to that. I did print advertising, and it's, in my opinion, just not worth its weight in gold.
Yes, agreed.
100% agreed with that as well. Unless you are solicited by a media company that is writing for a major publication, especially if it's a major publication that's specific to your area, right? So, but yes, paper advertising usually doesn't.
What is
kind
an
of a
example
waste.
of that? Can you speak to that a little bit more, Dara?
Say again, I'm sorry, Megan.
Can you speak to more on that? You said a major publication, so I'm thinking
Sure.
like People magazine, but what are you saying specific? Like, are you saying, go ahead.
Yeah, so specifically, I mean, I was very honored for this. In fact, I don't know if it's a secret or I can just share, but I don't really care. But I was approached by a media company in January asking me if I would be interested in being in Vogue. And I was like, whoa, really? Me? What? You know, that kind of thing. Because again, no matter how long you own your business, no matter how successful you are, there's always just this little like feeling of just insecurity. I think because we're entrepreneurs and, you know, we don't work for other people, we work for ourselves. So there's a very big difference there. So when I received this note, she said that we have one of two, there's 4 spots, 2 are already taken, but we're focusing on women business owners, and they're from all different types of businesses. And, you know, of course, it's advertising, it's expensive, it's ridiculous. However, what it does is it allows you to write on your website, as seen in Vogue. That gives you credit and credibility. That is what Google looks for when they start doing these web crawling things on the back end of your site. One of the biggest things that I can tell you that has helped us is search engine optimization. I have not heard that yet here in the conversation. So having a stellar search engine optimization team that works on your stuff on the day-to-day or the month-to-month is imperative for success. So print advertising, be very, very, very selective of where you do that. If you have local magazines that are like hoity-toity, because the hoity-toity are the ones that can afford our services, you know, then definitely, you know, maybe one ad and you know, and don't go small. If you can go big, go big. 1 page is better than a quarter page. That's no, but that's it.
Well, congratulations about Vogue. That's exciting.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's
I think it
exciting.
definitely will give you some credibility. Don't know if it'll make the phone ring, but it will give you that credibility for sure, which will help people feel good about the choice to use you. All right,
Diana, can
go ahead,
I
Stephanie.
just chime in and ask if you'd be willing to share who does your SEO?
Are you asking Dara who does her SEO?
Yes. So I've hired SEO and we've had a campaign and it's done well, but I'm curious to know any SEO companies that are reputable that she would recommend.
Oh,
Sorry, go ahead, Dara.
okay. Well, I just decided to leave the company that I've been working with, and they've been great to get me to where I am, but I need to do some more stuff. But Running Fish, RUNNINGFISH.com. They are down here in San Diego, so they're local to me, but they do everything nationwide. So they're great. And Chris Vassey, VASEY, is the guy. So if you have, you know, and I don't pay a lot for SEO. So if I was to pay $3,500 a month, I'm sure I'd be in a different world, right? I only pay $1,200 a month for SEO because that's enough for me, right? Because again, we're not all over.
I'm sorry,
here.
what did you say? What is the name of it you said?
It's called Running, like running fish, like, you know.
Awesome.
So Running Fish.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing that.
Of course.
Stephanie, there's another suggestion in the chat box as well for Elevate Virtual Marketing. Both Emily and myself use Danielle and love her. All right, back to our panel. I'm going to ask one other question, and if there are any others, please drop them in the chat box because we know everyone is really, really busy. So my panel, what do you wish you could tell yourself when you were starting your business if you could do it all over again? Like, would you do it all over again? And if so, what do you wish you could have said to yourself back then?
I can jump in here. One thing that I wish I had more confidence with early on, and I still struggle with 10 years into this, is just picking up the phone sometimes when a phone call is necessary. I think sometimes it's easy just to kind of hope problems will go away or resolve themselves, but just having open communication. If there is an issue, don't try to resolve it over email because that really just makes everything worse typically. And just not being scared to pick up the phone and like have a personal conversation with someone. Once I learned that, it really helped. I feel like there were times when I ended up losing clients because I was scared to have those difficult conversations. So, and address certain things. And And it takes time. I mean, I still get like nervous having hard conversations and have to psych myself up. So it's never easy to have those phone calls, but it's super important in my opinion.
That is a great suggestion. And would you start all, if you could do it all over again, would you, Bailey?
Oh yes, absolutely. I still love what I do.
That's great. What about you, Ms. Carson? If you could do it all over again, would you? And is there anything that you would tell yourself to do differently?
I mean, I started this business when I was 19, so I just had no faith in myself, especially with, talking to these lawyers and doctors that are twice my age, if not more. It was really intimidating. And I think just believing in myself and knowing that I'm capable instead of negative self-talk, I think that is definitely something I would go back in time and change if I could, because just like that, Nannies by Noah, like Meshonda was saying, I had listened to that same thing. And if, she can do it, if, any of us can do it, a 19-year-old can too. So just, not doubting myself and, believing in myself and not second guessing myself. I would definitely go back in time and just, believe in myself more and not, doubt my capabilities.
I love that. Man, Noah, Nannies by Noah, I had no clue she was so inspirational. We should have her come on. Her company is ran by Jo Barrow. If you haven't met Jo, she was the INA Nanny of the Year at the very first conference I went to. And she will always be my Nanny of the Year because she gets up there with her little English accent and she's the sweetest thing. And I was like, who is this woman? I have to know her. But so she runs Nannies by Noah now because Noah, I think she's post-grad. I think she graduated college, but she was, busy in school. All right, Meshonda and Denise, would love to hear from you. Would you do it all over again if you have the chance? And if so, what would you say to yourself? What would you have changed? What would you have said to yourself in the beginning?
Similar to the other ladies is the confidence and just kind of knowing your worth. One thing I would add to that is every client is not for you, and being able to cut people loose early on. We don't want to waste anyone's time. I'm not here to argue with you about who we are, what we do, or what we charge. I'm happy to explain it, but we may not be a fit for everybody. So just knowing that and walking in your truth is amazing. So that's what I would tell the younger me.
I love that. I love that.
I would echo everyone too. I think I would absolutely do it again. I love working for myself. I love being my own boss. I think the other thing is I wouldn't bend any rules at the beginning or make any exceptions, stick to my policies. Yes, you might lose a client or two. That's okay. But like Meshonda said, you eventually, you want to build that credibility and that reputation, and the good families and the good candidates will find you that way.
That is great. Thank you, ladies, so much for sharing with us. You are just a wealth of knowledge. I'm so inspired by each of you. Thank you for those of you that joined us. I hope that you found this really inspirational and informational. We do hope to see you on our next webinar, and we will be sending this out for replay for those of you who didn't have a chance to join us live. But I hope you guys have an amazing week. Thanks again for all you do and being part of our community, and specifically for Bailey, Meshonda, Denise, and Carson. We love you guys, and thank you for sharing your journey with us. I will see you guys soon.
Thank you, Megan.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. How are you?